That one day I was you with the guy.
Okay, today we are talking about adding and subtracting decimals. When we add and subtract decimals, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Line them up. Line them up, line them up, line them up, fire. That's all you gotta remember. Line up your decimals when you add and subtract. If you are using a calculator, make sure you insert the decimal where the decimal needs to be. So, this is on your steps to solve. Write the decimals so that they line up vertically, meaning up and down. Line them up, add and subtract, just like they were regular numbers, and then put your decimal point in the answer straight below where it needs to be. Remember that zeros can be added after the decimal and not change the value of your number. So if you have extra places in there that are empty and you need to add placeholder zeros, you may do that without changing the value of your number. For example, if you have 85 minus 13.26, where is the decimal in a number that has no decimal? The 85. Where's the decimal in our 85? After the 5. It ends up after the 5 over here because there is no decimal. It's just a whole number. So we know that, that it goes after the 5. So we can add those two zeros without changing the value of that number. When we do that, we're going to have to borrow if we are subtracting. Once again, this just goes over the steps. Write your decimals, line up vertically, line up your decimal points, add zeros where needed to be, subtract or add just as if they were whole numbers, and then drop your decimal down to the answer. So, on the back side, oh, not on my paper. Does your paper have a back side?
Yeah. Do you need me to go make you a copy?
No, I got one over here. On the back side should be this example. Already lined up vertically for you so you can see how the decimal points line up. We are simply adding straight down the columns. We did insert 1 0 after the 3 on the first number to make them all have equal amounts of places behind the decimal point. So when we add these up, 0, 4, and 7 gives me, carry my 1. 1 and 3 and 8 give me, carry my 1. 5, 2, 1 and 2, plus 5. Drop, I put my decimal point in as I write my answer. They say that is the last step. I like to do it just as I work across my numbers.
1, 2, 8.387.
Well, I should write somewhere else so you can see the actual answer. Look, ours matches. Next one is 19 plus 26 and 72 thousandths. First thing you need to do is line them up vertically. When I do that, where does the decimal point go in my 19? After the 9, and I have to add zeros. So I have matching places to my other number. That's what I got.
I did it in my head.
Look at you go. I'm so proud of you. If I had a lollipop, I would give it to you right now. All out of lollipops. Okay, this time we have 7 and 12 hundredths plus a negative 9 and 92 hundredths. One is a positive, one is a negative. So what do I have to do to these two numbers? Subtract. When I am subtracting, I need to line them up so that my larger value is on top, okay? Even though that number comes second, I have to line them up because the larger value needs to be on top so I have something to take away from. And because the larger value was a negative, my answer is going to be a negative. Make sense? So then we move on to subtraction. We have 56 and 21 hundredths minus 5 and 9 tenths. Again, we have to line them up vertically and add that 0 to make sure we have the same numbers of places filled in after our decimals. So I'm going to have to borrow when I get to this place here. Drop my decimal point straight down. And I end up with 50 and 31 hundredths. Is that what you ended up with? Next one is 28 minus 3 and 3 tenths. When I line these up, where is my decimal in my 28? After the 28?
25.3.
No.
It's 24.7.
Because I have 0 on top and a 3 on bottom, I'm going to have to borrow. I can't just say 0 minus 3 is 3. I have to borrow from my 8 and make that a 10. And now I have 7 there. Right? When we have that 0, we can't just drop that number down. The next one says subtract 19 from 25.91. When I'm writing this vertically, which number goes on top and which number goes on bottom? 25 and 91 hundredths goes on top. I am subtracting 19 from that number. My decimal is after my 9. I add my zeros. Now this time, Mason, feel free to just drop those on down. Because our numbers are on top and our zeros are on bottom, I'm taking those zeros away so our 9 and 1 can just drop down.
6.
Next, I am subtracting negative 5.4 minus 9.6. When I look at this, I should notice both of these numbers are negative or have minus signs. So what do I essentially have to do to their values? Add. I am actually adding these two numbers together. It's very nice of them. Should end up with 15.
But it's negative, right?
Yes. Sorry, negative 15.
That's okay.
Okay, remember what we do when we have this? We have a negative 105 minus a negative 7.23. What do I have to do to those values? I am adding. Minus a negative turns into an addition. Minus a negative turns into an addition, so I essentially end up with a negative 105, or 1 and 5/100, plus 7 and 23/100. Now 1 is a negative and 1 is a positive. So what am I doing to these numbers? I have to subtract their values. You just know that because I just put it up there, or did you figure it out already?
So if it's in the parentheses and it's negative, you always subtract.
Not always. Like in the parentheses and it's negative. Like this one is in parentheses and it's negative, but we're subtracting it. So when we subtract a negative, it becomes a positive.
Okay.
So even though it becomes a positive, I end up with a negative plus this number, so I'm subtracting. Sorry. Okay, normally I say estimating. We don't estimate. There's no reason to estimate. But I feel like today's lesson is a good lesson for us to practice some estimating because it's a good way to determine if you have the correct answer. So when we estimate 7.6 minus 2.1, we can say 7.6 is about the same as, what number could we round that to? 8. And 2.1 is about the same as 2. So 8 minus 2 is 6. Our answer should be close to 6 when we do the exact subtraction. So you line those up, subtract, and see if your answer is close to 6. Should end up with 5.5. 5.5 is fairly close to 6, so therefore our answer is correct. Here's our next one, 23.8 minus 32.1. What would I round 23? I'm sorry, plus. I think I said minus. What would I round 23.8 to? 24. What would I round 32.1 to? If I add those together, my answer should be close to 56. So add those together and see. What'd you end up with, Blake? You gotta line them up. You can't add with them side by side like this. You really got to write them up and down on your paper to do it. Adding when they're side by side is so difficult for your mind to grasp. What'd you end up with, Mikey? 55.9. Our estimate was 56. 55.9 is pretty stinking close to 56, so we must be correct. Next, you're going to have some problems where you have to substitute in an x and a y. So for this example, it says we have x plus y. X is 5.5 and y is 2.8. So we are simply adding those two values together.
We're estimating or
No estimating. Just two estimating problems. What'd you get, Laura? Thanks, Laura. Your voice changed. Much better. Thank you. Lastly, in our lesson today, we're going to work on combining like terms. To do that, we need to be able to look at a problem and determine what like terms we have. Mason, give me two like terms in this problem.
20.1y and
Negative 4.3y. And what about this 20y? Make sure you include that negative with it. So they're both negatives. Because they're both negatives, we have to do what to those two values? Add them. So 20.1 and 4. Whoop. I don't know how to undo my writing on there. I did put it in the wrong spot. Let me just scribble it out real quick. I don't.
4 down, 0.4.
And what kind of 24.4 is that? It's a negative. And what do I have to put after it? A y, because those were both our y values. So I have a negative 24.4y. And then I also have 7.8 and 14.6 hanging out here. Do those have any variable with them? No, so we can combine them. They are both constants in this problem. When I combine them, I end up with what? $22.4. So my answer is 24.4y and 22 plus 22.4. Negative 24.4y. I think I forgot to say that.
I need the high school boys basketball team to report to the big gym, please.
Oh, shoot. Snap, crackles, and pops. Okay, questions about today's assignment? It is online. It should be fairly simple. You may use a calculator for this assignment. You should be done before class is over.
So after that, do we have to solve that part or
No.
substitute answers?
Yep, because there's nothing on this side of the equals sign to set it equal to, so we just have to leave it just like that.